All right, we should be going live. There we go. Pop out the chat. Wait for notifications to go to people. I'm like 4 minutes early. Have some cheese. A little bit of mead. Hey, Lysander. Hey, Adrianeth. Damien. Moonring. Juju Bear. Nice to see you. Boy, it's been ages. Hey, Grant. Wow, how long's it been, Juju Bear? Robert. Kick-ass. Faith. Yeah, it has been a while. Rose Magia. Brian Wells, nice to see you. Hey, Garrett. Pale Rider. Nikolai. How's it? Hey, Mazius. You're most welcome. No, I haven't played Baldur's Gate. I'm not getting it until until it's like a full release. I'm not into the old beta releasing. Hey, William. Hey, Michael. First one you've caught in months. Hey, Zintu. Tips imaginary hat. Tips real hat back. Cheers, everyone. Olaf. Nice to see you. Garden's good. It's mostly gone to seed. That's what I do. I let the plants go to seed so that bees can get something to eat early on in spring. You just watched the last live stream last night. Nice. It's cool that you remember so many people. Well, yeah. I mean, I talk to them on a weekly basis, so. IT help desk at Uva. What's Uva? You got the Rime of the Frost Maiden book a day before my my Ice Devil video dropped. Nice. Hey, thanks, Grant. I'm glad you're enjoying them. Hello, Leslie. Oh, you comment on every video, right? Much appreciated. It's true, we get together here more than we do with real life people anymore. Okay, so I have a theme for this week's live stream, and that is, you'll see in the video description down below, I've got a couple of links for some Kickstarters that are going on at the moment. The first one is Blackstorm Realms. This is, I'm not getting sponsored by these guys, I have no idea I'm talking about it. I'm just really keen to get this, get these in combinations with each other. So Blackstorm Realms is from Jetpack 7. Jetpack 7 is the Conceptopolis who did all the artwork for 5th edition. There's 20 days to go on the Kickstarter. Both of these are well and truly funded. It's into all these stretch goals and stuff now, so you're getting a good deal. There's a free PDF preview of this. Blackstorm Realms is essentially a magic punk sci-tech sort of. It's based on 5th edition, but it takes it to more like Numenera sort of levels of stuff, and I think it's going to combine really, really well. I've mentioned this before. If you can go out and get yourself Arcana of the Ancients, which is by Monty Cook Games, the guys who do Numenera, and it's 5th edition compatible, right? So this has got all of the cybernetics and weird creatures and things like that. So if you're running any sort of far realm or crashed spaceship or, you know, all sorts of stuff, there's some really, really good stuff in there. It's a really well put together book, because essentially they've just gathered together a lot of the best stuff from Numenera and converted it straight over for you. So you know, so you combine that with like a game where you're going through portals and things like that, and they've got all these different realms and stuff that they're packing into the Blackstorm Realms, and there's like it's like takes the epic stuff of Spelljammer with like galactic level threats and things like that and propels it into different territory, and it doesn't have that like Spelljammer has an appeal because it's kind of zany and slapstick and stuff, but there's also a lack of depth to Spelljammer, which people who've played it for a while will point out. Hey, Frederick. Hey, Emil. You're just reading The Ruin, there's Galligons in that book. Yeah, that's right. Going to dance, we might do if I drink enough mead. Numenera is a book about the far, far future. It's an RPG setting where it's like takes the elements of Dark Sun, where you're far in the future and many, many empires have risen and fallen, and the world is kind of getting to its last legs, sort of thing. So the artifacts and stuff that you find are very high tech and stuff. So you're at a point where civilization is sort of crawling back. And the thing is that Forgotten Realms is at that stage as well. Have you noticed that there's a big desert where a massive civilization was recently, that it was at the height of magical power, and now the world is sort of coming out of a dark ages and they're rediscovering magic and stuff like that in the Forgotten Realms. But there's also the threat of old empires rising up in the Gulf and stuff. So it's at that rebuilding stage where world settings can be most interesting. The other one that I wanted to talk... Blackstorm Realms, they've got a free PDF preview that you can download for the Blackstorm Sorcerer, which is 5th edition compatible, so you could throw it into your games if you wanted to. But that will give you a taste of what the character play and stuff like that is. There's aside from the magic, advanced magic system and the magic tech stuff that they have in there, there's not a huge amount of innovative stuff other than the setting stuff itself. However, the next one that I'm going to talk about does have some innovative new stuff, which I'm really excited about. It's just the setting and the feel and the vibe of it that I think will be really good. You can back it for $25 US for a PDF reward, or $55 for a hardcover book, or there's an $85 option for a box set, which is the most appealing to me. Stargate SG1 is also being converted over to 5th edition and released on Kickstarter. There's 12 days to go on that one. This is from Wyvern Gaming, and there's a quick start guide PDF that you can download off the Kickstarter page for free. You can back that for $10 for a PDF or $55 for a book, and that's got 12 days to go, as I mentioned. And one really interesting thing is, like, if you've kind of missed seeing the stars from Stargate SG1 and stuff, they're playtesting, and so it's very actively involved with the Stargate community, you could say, and all the fans and the actors and stuff in the series have been playing it as well. Particularly David Hewlett has been playing it, and I watched a Twitch stream where he was making a character and stuff, and it was really funny. How will they destroy the realms next? I don't know. Yeah, Stargate 5e. Now, the interesting thing about that Stargate game is that they've got some really innovative new stuff for different ways of handling non-combat encounters, which are like diplomacy encounters and different stuff like that, like technology discovery encounters and things, which I'm really excited about because it opens up new avenues of playing 5th edition. And this is what I most love about third parties getting their hands on the system and developing it more, because it's stuff that I haven't seen before, and it can equally apply, because you can borrow and take things. Like, if you're using one gaming system for everything, you can borrow and take stuff from different gaming systems and gaming companies and stuff, and the innovations they've used to build your own homebrew worlds and your own homebrew use of the system, and guys who have thought about it in different ways to accommodate elements of their storytelling. Like in the Stargate one, it's an episodic type thing, so it really, like David Hewlett said, it's like sitting down and writing a script for one of the episodes. And I was like, that's exciting. I like that idea, because that's the sort of thing that Mutants and Masterminds and stuff is all about. Anyway, new role-playing stuff for everyone. Yeah, this is the thing. And I love it because these three things fit together so incredibly well. And that's why the thumbnail for this live stream is a portal, because the idea of Stargate SG-1, where the ancients sent a ship out to lay portals to go from place to place, makes perfect sense if portal technology is a thing. So in Dungeons and Dragons technology, you could say, if you've got the capacity to make a magical portal that can instantly transport you from one location to the next, that becomes your way of traveling throughout space. The idea of traveling everywhere on spelljamming ships, and the whole, spheres and stuff is fantastical and it's interesting, but it's very, not to everybody's cup of tea. I've always felt the spheres were a little bit stupid myself, and the phlogiston is interesting and the spheres are interesting and stuff, but I really like the idea of there being space between places, and the different realms of Dungeons and Dragons being different planetary systems within a galaxy or something like that you can reach through conventional means by traveling very, very fast through space, or a hyperspace. Why can't you travel from the Feywild from one planet to the next? Or why can't you astral travel? That sort of thing. Moonring, yeah, the Exarchital's video is on the way, I'm sure. Yeah, $55, $65 or so for a Kickstarter hardcover book is fairly standard. $85 the box set, yeah, you get a DM's guide and dice and all that sort of stuff. Battlestar Galactica back in the day, yeah. Stargate SG5E. Hey, thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for a reminder, Jimmy. It is a monetized live stream, so if anybody feels like being generous today, it's most appreciated. And also, if you're doing a super chat, I absolutely notice them. Can I get stats for the replicators? As horrible as that would be for D&D World. Stargate SG-1 is probably going to include stuff like, this is a contemporary one, so it's set after the fall of the Goa'ulds. I don't know if it's got stuff from Atlantis. This is Phoenix, so it's based on sort of like Earth tech and the Tauri and all that sort of stuff. But it's got an interesting, diverse range of stuff, and of course, as they unlock more stuff, they include more additional settings and styles and things and information. But I would suggest go to the Kickstarter and check it out for sure. It's probably got more information because I just sort of looked at it, went, where, yep, and clicked instantly. Didn't delve too deeply into it. Thanks, Michael. I'm running this exact game now. Just started Crooked Hills from A of the A, sort of based on the last 5 minutes of your Aboleth video plus Incursion. Nice. Yeah. So I cross the streams on game settings all the time when I'm role playing. When I'm running a game, there is absolutely no stops. Did Amaskar or Stargate come first? Stargate came first. The Batraki, in particular, were portal builders, and the Amaskar Empire used Batraki technology to build their portals and dominate the face of Faerun and Karatua. In fact, the Amaskari Empire founded Karatua, you could say. I thought you could hire boats to travel the astral plane. I don't have much interest in Pathfinder and their gaming system and the complexity of 3.5 edition, so I haven't had a look at Starfinder because the fundamental gaming of it, the game system of it, just doesn't appeal to me. I've been there and I've done that. I've done 3.5 edition, and I don't really want to go back to 3.5 edition. So Pathfinder 2, I find to just be clunky. I really like 5th edition, and I'm excited to see further developments of the gaming system going forward. So I never did the sidetrack to Pathfinder from 4th edition. I played through 4th edition, enjoyed it, enjoyed the uniqueness of it and the difference of it. And then when 5th edition came around, I was like, oh great, this feels like old school stuff, but like brought up to a modern sort of standard, with addressing the power balance problems and making character building more modular, and they've just sort of advanced that even more with the race and racial abilities and backgrounds and culture versus biology and things like that. So no, I think 5th edition has got lots of opportunities as an open game license, and this is finally companies that are sort of getting behind it and providing more stuff. So this is what I'm saying. I haven't got much interest in going off brand, but staying on brand for 5th edition and seeing what third party companies are coming up for it. Hey, welcome to Bronze Dragon, Sam. You like the idea of a grand and dangerous expeditions through space to set up a new gate. Exactly. Did you see Steve in Smash Bro? No, I did not. Hey, happy birthday, Kairos. Howdy, Darth. Yeah, I mean, GURPS was the first multiversal rule system, or megaversal rule system, if you want to borrow a phrase from Palladium. It's a D6 system, so it's really easy to grab the dice from any sort of board game that you've got lying around. You know, if you've got a Yahtzee game somewhere in your house, you can play GURPS. So it's definitely got that appeal to it, and it's the basic game is very simple, and you can just get more complicated as you see fit to adapt it to any particular specific setting that you want. But the core of GURPS is adaptable to any sort of gaming system that you want. So I've never badmouthed GURPS, and I've always had a huge respect for it as one of the very first gaming systems to come out, other than Dungeons and Dragons, really. So for sure. And it's an old system, sure, but it's a goodie, and I recommend people check it out. Same thing with Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds has got that same sort of generic multiversal appeal. Save the Tok'ra. Yeah. All of these options are available to you. I mean, who doesn't want to shout out Jafar Crew and then start blasting? What do I think of the Indestructible Beholder Dragon? I haven't seen it yet. Rifts in D&D, essentially. Hey, thanks to Wall. There is an author who did a D&D novel in the far future of D&D, the Dresden Files. The author even did character role for Building Harry Dresden. Also basically threw in the entire monster manual. Did he? I was not aware. Were sorcerers descended from dragons? That's a very good question, the Ascendant. Were sorcerers descended from dragons affected by the Dragon Rage mythol? No, they were not. Nor were Dragonborn. Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, 5th edition rules are free to read through online, so there's no excuse really not to check out the system, at least to compare it to older editions and see how it feels. Just get you and a buddy and play a one-on-one game and see how it feels. Oh, the cheese is the same as usual. It's the baby Kikarangi, deep blue, dangerous, dark, and horrible cheese that I eat on a regular on a Sunday morning. Yeah, GURPS was sort of the first game that touted the advantages and disadvantages point by sort of system. Not quite to the extent that Palladium Games did, with their BioE system of building characters from you start with a base animal. In your games, do you use Dwarven Forged tiles? Tiles? No. Too expensive for me. Nothing against Dwarven Forge, and I respect what they do. but it's exorbitantly expensive. And also, I don't have anybody local to play with, so I've sort of stopped buying miniatures and stuff lately. Plus, I can build my own miniatures. In fact, I'm in the process of building Piercer and Roper right now. It doesn't look like much. This is the base skeleton of Roper as we go, but he's got that telltale chink in the top of his chunk out the top of his head there, you could say. This is yeah, will work pretty quickly. Piercer, of course, I've done a slightly larger than life Piercer because Piercer is normally actually a lot smaller, but it looked so unimpressive. Plus, there's a lot of detail on Piercer, but his body, of course, is just a spike. He's got no external features whatsoever. That's part of the appeal of Piercer. But he's got his Hawaiian shirt that he's going to be wearing, and also the pink donut on the top of his head. Yeah. So they're on the way. They're on the way. Would magical technology be backed by magic? I could see mage guilds wanting to make a mint selling parlor tricks. Yeah. I mean, they're humans, right? So the idea of spells are always going to be around. Like, spells and rituals are always going to be a part of building magical technology and magical items. It's got to be a magical world to have all these magical components, so to speak. So there's got to be something a little bit skew-if around the reality underlying a magical world that allows you to alter reality by the force of will. A chunk. Yeah, he's got a chunk out of the top of his head. Like, he's not quite symmetrical as Roper. Plus, he's got a mossy moustache and stuff like that I've got to build all the details for. Hey, Robert, thank you. Halloween is fast approaching here in the US, and I was wondering, how would the film Hocus Pocus do as a domain of dread? Perfectly fine. Yeah. Well, that's basically the whole point of Domains of Dread, is that you take a movie franchise or something like that, like Frankenstein or whatever, and you pop it into a Domain of Dread, and you basically run the story. No love for Greed Jr.? No. There were lots of really good suggestions for different sculpts that I can do, and I'm going to be pursuing quite a few of those. Thanks, Morgan. How would devils react to Rift's Earth? Good question. Well, there's no restrictions. Like, Rift's Earth was based on the idea that a planet goes through... It's a gateway planet. It's a hub planet with ley line energy that connects it to the larger multiverse. And because of the disaster and everything aligning just right, Rift's Earth's portals ripped open, and a natural cycle of ebb and flow of magical power switched on fully, and Rifts became a multi-dimensional hotspot. They developed this idea further in Phase World, where they used technology to essentially take one of these portal planets and open it up fully and keep it open and make gateways that turned into a hub of multiversal travel. And I love this idea. So this is like wormhole technology. You've got a planet of portals, kind of like a worldwide sigil. With devils, they don't have any restrictions traveling to and from the primaterial worlds. They like, a devil can use magic to travel out of the Nine Hells and to the primaterial plane. A lot of people assume that they can't. They're somehow restricted and they're stuck in hell. That's not actually the case. They can actually travel there. They just usually don't have a lot of resources to do so, or reason to do so. And of course they can be summoned to the primaterial plane, and they can step through portals. There's not a lot of portals that connect to the Nine Hells because the Nine Hells is secured. It's locked away. You have to travel through the layers in succession to get from A to B, but there's ways of traveling from layer to layer that the devils know. So when they arrive on somewhere like Rift's Earth, they're stepping through a portal into a high technology world where they don't have access to these weird devices and things. That they've seen stuff like that before. Technology is not that exciting. When you've dealt with an artifact, for instance, you've seen what technology can be. something that can reshape reality around you. So like a railgun or something like that is just a really advanced magic wand to a devil, but it's kind of lacking because it has to have component bits that get put into place, and you need to source power sources and recharge it in manual ways instead of it just automatically doing it. So it's a little bit inferior, the Rift's technology. It's effective, but it's kind of bothersome. So they might have like a Glitterboy railgun in the office in the Nine Hells, and a D&D character would be like, "What's this?" "Oh, it's just from some power armor from this place called Earth." Yeah, there's devils and stuff on Rift's Earth, but they're just DBs. They're just a different variety of DBs. Yes, I played Wormwood. I would love to see an Ixazar Chittle's Spelljammer ship, like a water ship and stuff. That'd be cool. Thanks, Michael. So, if you advance the timeline of Toril a few hundred years to a more modern era, how do you see the world developing? Well, I don't know if it would necessarily go down the same route as the technology of our modern world. They probably have printing presses. They might have more sort of magical replication. It's interesting to see how things would develop with the giants and dragons and stuff like that, and whether you would have human empires which are shattered into domains of dragons, for instance, or the giants actually, like the fire giants, return to Toril and take it over. So there could be massive environmental disasters and stuff like that. It could go in any way, lots of different directions. That's the thing about Faerun, is it's on the cusp of going in various different directions. So, for instance, Helruer might decide to re-establish the Netheril Empire and start to expand out in the southern side of. So they might take over the entire peninsula of southern, like all the way up to the old empires and stuff, could just become Helruer, and they could seriously dominate the rest of the world because nobody else has got like flying ships and stuff like Helruer does. Kalimshan could suddenly start making approaches to Arm and Tethir and stuff, and take over the central region, and eventually dominate both the Trackless Sea and the Sea of Fallen Stars. You never know. Who knows? There could be another Tweegan invasion that takes over all of Thay and Damara and Narfell and Vassar and the old empires and just charges straight through on horseback. Who knows? Conceptopolis is nearby. Oh, nice. You should stop in and visit them. Glitter boys, hold my cannon. Laser pylon feet. You're running a Gibbering Mouther encounter in your next session. Any ideas for interesting distortions or madness I can use to spice things up? So Gibbering Mouthers actually like warp reality. They sort of dissolve stuff in front of them, like they turn rock into mud in front of them, and then it just sort of rehardens. So they actually churn stuff up around them. They're so disruptive to reality, and they spit acid and stuff. Well, the effect is acid, but it could actually be magical corruption. So your body could actually end up twisted and stuff like that. So they might leave behind weird, strange sculptures and things that is like a cry for help, or some form of communication from one of the personalities which is immersed into the Gibbering Mouther. They could imagine some sort of like a psychic civil war going on inside a Gibbering Mouther, where one personality, say an absorbed spellcaster, perhaps a wizard who was responsible for the laboratory in the first place, who ended up falling into the Gibbering Mouther and becoming part of it, and going insane in the process, but is struggling to reassemble their psyche and actually dominate the Gibbering Mouther. So it becomes more of a strange, weird, horribly twisted humanoid that's struggling to control the rest of these screaming personalities. So you could run it all sorts of different ways. Make it really interesting. Just highlight how horrible and wrong this Gibbering Mouther is in the first place. And of course they're constantly spitting and splitting off bits of themselves that get grabbed and drawn back in and reabsorbed and stuff. So yeah, I love Esper's Paragon class. I'm looking forward to playing it. Will a Dispel magic turn off a Retriever? I think it might slow it down. I don't think it'll turn it off. Techno Wizards represent. Yeah, Techno Wizards were cool. Like, it works because I say so. That kind of takes the idea of the Warhammer 40k orc. Like, this gun is a collection of garbage cans and, like, milkshake machines, and yet it works because the orcs say it does. And they've painted a flame up the side of it, so it's faster. It's like, yeah, I like that idea. Hey, Jimmy. Worried about empires taking over? I'm sure the orcs or something else will help prevent that. It is their purpose after all. Is it? Is it their purpose? Elves will probably sabotage the next empire that rises up. They'll just like drop a mountain on them or create a volcano or flood the area like they've been known to do on numerous occasions. Well, the Thune stuff that I was talking about in the Thune video is techno horror far realm, so that's the idea. Thune connected with the Arcana of the Ancients, for instance, gives you lots of possibilities. The the idea of like a magical byproduct being the ooze that caused the mutation in the, like, it was the, in the original comic book, the Utroms, those little basketball-sized globs of goo with huge egos, they weren't actually evil in the first comic. They were just aliens who were trying to get home, and they were trying to build a transmat, a teleportation device to take them from one part of space to the next. And the byproduct of their technology was a ooze that they were trying to transport to safely dispose of in these canisters, and one of them fell off the back of a truck, landed in a sewer, and mutated a bunch of turtles. That's the whole origin story of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the original comic. So the idea with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Eric Wujcik's overarching theory was that the more advanced the technology becomes for a society, a civilization, the more pollutants from their technology enter into the environment, causing more mutations, which eventually results in the division of their society, speciation, into different mutant forms, which brings that society down again, creating a natural check and balance. If diseases and starvation and stuff isn't a factor, then mutation will cause division into different ecological niches within that mega society, which is a fascinating idea. And it's definitely got parallels in what, you know, humans have done to the earth, releasing, you know, DDT and various other things, like destroying bee populations and stuff. Like, what's that going to do? So that's a really, really interesting theory behind the role-playing game of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that appealed to me as a teenager reading it, going, there's a deep meaning here. It was a very sci-fi concept. Yeah, Doctor Who is a techno wizard, for sure. I mean, look at the operation controls of the TARDIS. They pretty much embrace it. That's right, Matt. Thundar the Barbarian. I've seen Thundar the Barbarian. They didn't air it on our television, but I have seen it. Yeah. I wish they continued with it. I love the humour of Thundar the Barbarian. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a long time ago. It was really, very innovative system, and a really well put together game as a standalone. James, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 yet. I haven't even watched any gameplay of it, because I want to actually just play it from scratch without any preconceived stuff when it comes out in full. I'm not a first adopter. I don't prepay for games or anything like that. At the moment, I'm playing Star Wars Squadrons on my PlayStation 4 with my VR headset and enjoying the hell out of that. So yeah, that's my jam, man. You should see me through dogfighting in three-dimensional space. I'm a boss. So yeah, I played through No Man's Sky and got to the end of the campaign, and yeah, then switched to Squadrons. I'll probably go back to No Man's Sky. It's a good chill out game. Wibbly wobbly timey wimey. Yeah. So the more I read about Deep Mascar, for instance, the more I think they're like Time Lords who have built their civilization into a TARDIS that they are expanding on the inside. So if you go through if you find a gateway and go through one of these gateways into Deep Amaska, you're effectively opening a portal to a demi-realm inside the world of Toril. Much the same way that as you go from one layer of the Nine Hells to the next, you're essentially opening up a portal which it goes to another infinite plane inside the planet of Avernus. Or Beator. Oh, Eastman and Layard were the original comic book artists who came up with the whole concept. Wujik was the one who developed, with Kevin Simbida, the gaming system. Thanks, Morgan. How devils do respond to the demons of hell? Well, I would suggest watch a few of my videos to get the basics of the relationship between them. There's a blood war going on and stuff like that. Demons and devils are diametrically opposed to each other, because devils are on the side of law, trying to keep the structure of the universe together, and demons are all about breaking it down and turning it into a maelstrom, like the plane of limbo, where their mental powers are completely in control and they can dominate everything. So they're trying to tear it apart. How tall is Hootigen? I think he's... How tall are pit fiends? They're pretty tall. Much taller than... They're taller than 15 feet, I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check for a second. Oh, average height of a pit fiend, 12 feet. No, they're taller than that. Well, I keep saying 12 feet across the different editions. Surely. They are bigger than ice devils. Oh, okay. Balors are much bigger than pit fiends. Pit fiends are midgets in comparison. Demodans they've got their own plane of existence, and they do have dealings, but they're much more local. They're less interested in the prime material plane. 18 to 20 feet, yeah, is what I would say. The creators met because one of them was a pizza delivery guy that bought the other a pizza one night, and they became friends. Hence why the turtles are pizza obsessed. The pizza obsession wasn't present really in the comic books to begin with. Once the cartoon was syndicated and became popular, then they were all about the pizza, but that didn't really factor very much in the very first books. Yeah, it was interesting how it was changed to fit with prime time. And, you know, it blew up hugely. The way you describe Deep Amaska makes it sound like a benign version of the Abyss. It's a wizard world, right? So the wizards use their mastery of technology to completely support their existence. So not only that, but they build the universe. They build space around them and then fill it with everything that they want, completely sustained by magic. So it's yeah. There's been episodes where they've travelled into the TARDIS, for instance, and it just goes to show how huge the TARDIS actually is. And the TARDIS is fractal, so the structure of the TARDIS is repeated over and over and over again. Oh, okay, that is more understandable, Morgan. Thank you. How do devils react to a person that says that the demons rule hell? They think of mortals generally as quite ignorant, so they understand that demons and devils are the same thing to people from the prime material world, who just look at the horns and the scales and the wings and stuff and go, ah! You know. So they have very little patience for the ignorance of mortals anyway. Like, for instance, devils probably wouldn't actually engage in a regular conversation with a mortal just as a form of entertainment or pleasure or any sort of mutual respect whatsoever, all of their conversations with mortals are manipulative to get them to become what the devils want. So yeah, they may play along with whatever ignorance the mortals has in order to manipulate them into becoming more lawful evil, so that they can bolster their forces and protect the universe by any means. The means justify the ends, or the ends justify the means is the catchphrase of devils, right? They'll do anything to protect reality. So your individual worth means nothing to them, and your opinion on their existence means nothing to them. Heading into fighting a beholder in our next session, during our planning we had a bit of a disagreement. Would a monk's key strike work in the gaze of... Yes, in that regard, if the effect is to nullify magic, it works well. Like the so the eye beam of a beholder that nullifies magic in and of itself is not a magical effect. So if you cast Dispel Magic on a beholder's central eye, the Dispel Magic is a magic that is stopped by the eye before it affects the eye. So it's like that. It's like whatever is happening first. The key that can nullify magic will nullify the gaze of one of the secondary eyes of a beholder, because that's a magical effect. It's channeling magical energy. It's a good question. So in that regard, if the central eye beam of a beholder goes across a monk and the monk is using their key abilities, it doesn't count as magic. So the key strikes and stuff like that of a monk are psychic, not magic sort of things, which makes it quite interesting. So yeah, sorry, Stephen's got it right. Key isn't affected by anti-magic because it's not magic. It's different. Psionics in 5th edition, maybe. Depends on how you want to run it. Somebody calling on Pazuzu. Thanks to Wall. Big difference between demons and devils. Demons would prefer everyone become criminals. Devils would prefer everyone become lawyers. Yeah. Thanks, James. Who arranges meetings between angels and devils? They do. They meet in neutral ground, such as Sigil is a perfect place for them to meet. They've got channels. They've got ways of communicating with each other. They are essentially of the same ilk. They're both celestials. Always keep in mind, the outer planes are the afterlife, where dead people go. So it's like, you know, it's like Goku going to the afterlife in Dragon Ball Z. One of the books that I'm reading at the moment is the Codex of Infinite Planes, which is a series of different books that were released by a gaming company that I've sort of printed out and bound together, and I'm reading through them. And you've got the City of Brass on the plane of fire, and you've got the City of Glass in the plane of water, which is a multi-dimensional. It's an inner plane trade hub that is ruled over by mostly aquatic races, obviously. Has there ever been a war between chaotic good and lawful good in the outer planes? Not really. Good and evil don't really factor much into their concerns. They're concerned about the structure of the universe. Good and evil is largely a personal preference. It's not really. It doesn't really divide them into factions, because evil people can be part of good societies and function just the same as anyone else. There's good and bad in everyone. Yikes. Stay safe, Lucas. Devils and angels would converse to swap information about ancient secrets and vaults, and adventurers perhaps who are getting too close to uncovering something which could kick off further conflicts and complications in the multiverse. So they talk about big stuff. They also talk about potential alliances between the Lords of Hell and powerful angels. Yeah, it was a little bit more clear-cut in 3.5, and 5th edition really dropped the ball when it came to psychic powers and magic and ki and stuff, and not clearly defining it right from the very outset. That's on them. Thanks, Donald. How would you adapt a Norn, the 3rd edition Gourish elf Lich, to 5th edition? Pretty much keep them as is. So the main difference is, of course, is that when you touch them, you don't get frozen. They are still undead, and they still do have like the limitations of phylacteries and things like that, and they kind of fall apart a little bit more because they're not willing to drain the soul out of another person to power the constant restoration of their negative energy form. But they are supported more by draining a little bit of power from nature. So all undead drain energy from the living world. They're an entropic thing. So even if they're good aligned, they are still a blight on the living world. They still draw more than they give. They still take away from everything. So they're net entropy. So even Baelnorns are damaging to the natural world. So the elves and stuff who want the Baelnorn to exist have to shore up nature somehow to compensate for that. So there's a little bit less vitality or whatever. One way of doing that, of course, is portals to the Feywild, where there's an excess of positive energy. So it may be that you'll encounter Baelnorn in a realm where story and fairy tale has a little bit more influence. The magic is a little bit more whimsical because Fey energy is much higher there to support the drain of life that the Baelnorn are putting on the place. So yeah, but they're still liches. Given that Mordenkainen's is probably a little bit more in the know of the secrets of the multiverse, what keeps him safe from Vecna? Vecna is largely concerned with much bigger issues than one wizard. And really, Mordenkainen is working to keep the status quo. So he's working for the forces of neutrality, which means that he can be good, and he can also do evil things if good is taking too much sway and potentially overbalancing a situation so that a more subtle balance is at play, and the forces of good don't understand this. They just see evil and go at it. Like, all evil must be abolished, and Mordenkainen's like, no. They're actually doing something here that you are too squeamish to face the reality that it needs to be done. Because the reality is that reality is being torn apart by a horrible invasion force. So there's a problem there. So Vecna is largely concerned with big issues because he's a god now. He sees things in multiple planes of existence simultaneously. He's dealing with things in different worlds all the time. So he's like tuned into multiple different TV sets, seeing all sorts of different things. And every time somebody mentions his name, it's focusing on that. More TV sets are popping up. Mordenkainen is just a blip on his radar. And really, Mordenkainen is kind of doing his work by keeping things under wraps, even keeled, staying the same. Have you talked about integration and competition of magic and technology in D&D? So technology, because of magic, is quite different in the worlds of D&D. And they do integrate quite well, and you can replicate a lot of modern technology just using magical devices. Like cell phones are super easy. It's just a crystal that has a sending spell, and can use clairvoyance and stuff like that, or record thoughts and stuff. So it's not hard. And magic, of course, can do a lot of things that technological devices can't do, like teleportation, for instance, and time travel. Thanks, James. Can you name any other evil-aligned characters in the lore who saved the world? Please excuse for lack of a better description. Raistlin, maybe, from Dragonlance. He's definitely an evil character who kind of saved the world. You could say that Pug's alter ego in Magician is kind of evil as well. In a way, I suppose. Well, that's contentious. I don't know. I'd need to delve into it a little bit more. I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be quite a few elves. Maybe even some dragons who fit the bill. Whoa, thanks, Adrianeth. How would you handle a high-level celestial, personal attendant to a god, being cast out because that god was driven mad, expelling the less corruptible aspects of themselves? Would that celestial become an archfiend? Quite possibly, yeah. There's also got to be a neutrality to it as well, because it may not necessarily be either entirely good or entirely evil. And I love that idea of a god being driven mad and throwing out an aspect of themselves, because the aspect essentially would be a demigod, not necessarily an angel or turned into a devil per se. Devils were almost like an organized force that happened en masse. So you could have some sort of competing thing as well. It could be that the demi-realm or realm that they were in charge of, or particularly that home of that god, becomes separated from the rest of the multiverse and gets snapped up by the abyss. And you could encounter a layer of the abyss which is actively at war between the forces of chaos and the abandoned lawful side that is no longer supported by a unifying god psyche. So it's a very interesting idea. Yeah. So I would handle it many different ways. Yeah. High level celestials, yeah. They see a bigger version of the multiverse than mortals from the prime material plane do. They're planar creatures. They're more concerned probably with making sure that things don't get out of hand. Like if some mortal world, for instance, is just willy-nilly opening portals to the plane of water, for instance, that creates a conduit that can cause travel between the inner planes and the prime material plane, and from there the astral plane and onto the outer planes, that is getting around the defenses of other things. So they may actively go about destroying portals and things like that as a mission, so they could show up when somebody is creating a planar portal to destroy it, just because it shouldn't exist. So yeah, that's interesting. What happens when a wizard who has invested a huge amount of hours of their life, who's possibly been casting a spell for the last 16 hours, is beyond loopy because of lack of sleep and stuff? They've spent thousands and thousands of gold coins on components and stuff which are one-shot wonders. They've just spent them. They're trying to get this portal opened. The king has, their entire reputation is riding on it, and a celestial shows up to stop them. What do? They open a portal, summon a big bad, and say, get him. Next thing you know, you've got a massive conflict on your hands. And they don't have the resources to stop it. That's why, wizards are bad. That was a really good question. Hey, Dennis. Hey, Koroneko. Question. So what is Mordenkainen doing in Curse of Strahd? What does he hope to accomplish? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Well, the domains of dread are created by the dark powers that we're not supposed to know anything about, which I'm fine with, but they're creating these demi-realms that are essentially weird torture prisons that could disrupt things, because the dark powers just grab people, grab entities from the multiverse and throw them in there. And that could disrupt a lot of plans. What if they start grabbing good people? Hey, Mr. Sai. Did you finish the War of the Souls trilogy books? No, I did not. Yep, I'll look out for your next comment, Mr. Si. Hey, Robert. Besides Eberron, are there any other worlds that were reclaimed from the Abyss? If not, how would a party be able to separate a world from the Abyss? Good question, because a Pantheon tried to do that, and they got eaten and turned into different types of demons. Yeah, real good question. One way that I think would be really good for a grand campaign where you actually do travel to the Nine Hells and you travel to Cania and places where there's secrets locked away. Like, remember I was talking about there's cities buried in the ice of Cania where Celestials are still fighting the forces of chaos. Like, they got frozen midstream. They could actually be locked in time. So there could have been a spell which cast them, which locked them in time and propelled them forward in time, but through the multiverse in reality. So they actually got locked in the ice of Cania. Like, the ice of Cania is not just ice, it's temporal flow or something like that. There's runes that spellcasters are using the power of that spell in the form of symbols and stuff that were part of that spell. In the circles that bind demons when they are summoned, there's parts of spells that were cast during the Dawn Wars and the Wars of Chaos and Law that actually stop them in their tracks and say, if I cross over that and disrupt it, it's actually going to disrupt the spell, which is stopping reality from falling to pieces. So, as a lawful being, I can't step over that. Like, if I disrupt that flow, it could result in something way bad. Like, what are those symbols actually meaning is something I find very compelling. And like, they won't explain it to a wizard. They'll just say, well, you did a good job writing that. You know, how did you tap into that magic? Because you shouldn't. Like, I've got to kill you and destroy all of your books, because that's you're dealing with something you should not. That's way beyond your pay grade. So yeah, what if you travel to there and you realize that whole of Cania actually ripped a plane or part of reality that was being absorbed by the Abyss, ripped it free and shoved it into Bartor and kept it safe and locked it away. Like, it can no longer be integrated back into the prime material universe, but it's safe from the Abyss. They took it away from the Abyss. So the forces of law actually ripped a part of reality out and shoved it away under lock and key, and it's been guarded by Galugons ever since. Like, that sort of big concept idea. And there's the secrets of ripping a part of reality out and turning it into a demiplane that has been guarded by the forces of Nine Hells. In Warhammer 40k, Bane is the most benign god. Well, I mean, yeah, he's a Forgotten Realms god as well. Mr. Si, are there many different looking devils of the same species like demons, or do they look the same or of the same species? They don't all look the same, no. Like, even one of the pit fiends that's under the command of Mephistopheles, looks quite different because he's very close to Galugon stock. So he's got a longer tail, he's got like brown skin rather than deep red. He's got long sort of teeth that are more like insectoid mandibles. Yeah, so he looks quite different from other pit fiends. I think the higher up the ranks you go, the more individuality there is, and like imps and stuff can just wear jewelry and stuff, but they largely look the same. Yeah, but there's individuality for sure. I think the more you get to know the imps, the more you'd be able to tell the differences between them, because a lot of them have been alive for thousands of years, so they're going to get a lot of different traits. You know, they get injuries and things like curses and stuff that change their body shape and things that they can't be bothered dispelling, you know. Like, if you're in a society where a lot of people look very similar, any small difference may be accentuated. Like, even if it's a disfigurement, it may become a personality trait, a quirk that you recognize, you become known by. Like Klingons and their fangs, for instance. You can recognize the fang of a Klingon. Besides Eberron, are there any other worlds that were reclaimed? Oh, yeah. Eberron was an interesting case, too, because that required the death of a lot of Coatls. So, obviously, I guess Baker was a fan of the Guide to Hell book, which was, you know, the Ahriman and Jazarian version of Asmodeus and like the Quatals being divine beings and stuff. Thanks, Peter Dahl. Could you elaborate a bit on the prison plane? I have an imprisoned god in my setting and I'd like to make an adventure out of freeing a god. So essentially it's a demi-plane. So it's a space of reality created by causing dimensional division between it. It's a bubble in reality. Demi-planes don't necessarily coexist in the same area. Like if you step through into a portable hole, you're not stepping in, it's not occupying the ground underneath it at the same time. If you get popped out of it, then you just sort of get thrown back into reality adjacent to where that portal was. Or if you empty a portable hole, or if a portable hole explodes, the contents will be scattered all over the place. So imagine the prison plane is a series of portable holes that are large, and there's just more and more and more of them. And each one of them requires different specific keys to get through. So yeah, it's difficult. Think of it like force fields on the Star Trek ships. You know, you need to get through these force fields somehow. Not only that, but if you don't know where these particular demi-planes are, they're impossible to detect. You can detect the membrane of the portal to get in there, but you have no idea how big that space is until you get in there. Hey artist, welcome. How would you put a Deeper Mascara in a setting like Eberron? Same sort of way. You could fit it anywhere. I mean, Deeper Mascara could be in Eberron. They can form a portal to anywhere. So a portal to the demiplanes. Hey Donald, thank you. Is it enough of a bribe to do a Hellfire Worm video? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'll put it on my to-do list. Where's my to-do list? There it is. I've actually got it here already. I'll put a circle around it. And an arrow. There you go. Tomb Tapper is on my list as well. Thanks, Zach. Is there anything a demon won't do? Lovingly raise a child? Maybe. Hey AJ, I'm playing with the idea of a Lich so old and charged up with souls he is playing around with melee. A buffed Death Knight. Oh, you mean like physically wading into battle? Yeah. How would you make that work? Buffed Death Knight, altered spells. Death Golem. Like, let's see. Is there such a thing as like a... you could have him in a flesh golem. There's zombie golems. Bone golems. Yeah, probably something like a flesh golem, like he's built his body up using negative energy. That would probably be my take. Might not be everybody's cup of tea. Something like that. Certainly give him an undead aura. So give him some oomph. So like he puts out aura effects like a defense screen, almost like a prismatic wall, but of undeath and stun effects and mind control. You don't think a demon can organize a spice rack correctly? Well, Eberron was in the process of being swallowed up by the Abyss. This is according to some lore. People argue about the origin lore of Eberron and stuff and said that I got it wrong and things. I know what books I referenced and stuff, and they can go to hell. And that's why I don't do any Eberron videos, because there's a lot of jerks who just ripped anybody apart, who even tries to learn it. It's like, whatever. I was around when Eberron was first released. didn't find it particularly compelling then. So the idea is that the world of Eberron was being drawn into, was being eaten up by the abyss, and they went to extraordinary lengths to keep it out of there, including all of the Coatl of that world turning themselves into mythals, essentially, sacrificing their eternal souls to keep that world stable in a demi-realm of its own. Yeah, that's what Robert said in a nutshell. Is there any instance of a plane being alive other than Ravenloft? Ravenloft is alive in regards to it being tied into Strahd. Like, so those domains of dread are like personal prisons. Do I know anything about Incunabulum? There's so many different types of magical technology. It rings a bell. You'll have to explain more, Moonring. You played 2 campaigns in Eberron and didn't know that. I'm in awe. Well, it was a long time ago. Some people don't really go into deep cosmic stuff in their campaigns, and that's fine. Adrianeth, you're being too generous. Yeah, that's it. That's it, exactly. Don't quote the deep magic to me, which I was there when it was written. The Aslan slapdown. A Lich could turn itself into an Eidolon. Robert Lockhart, so Bronze Age low magic with wizards and then wizards, mostly charlatans, and the ones that with real power that can alter reality itself. You just described Magician by Robert E. Feist, where you got how tall are you? Why do you want to know? Where you had wizards who were learning wizardry the hard way, like, you know, regular sort of D&D wizards, and then you had sorcerers, essentially, which was what man, I just said his name before. Tad, Knob, Bug, whatever. Where he untapped his potential to tap into raw magic itself and reshape reality. That sort of thing. Yeah, Eberron unfortunately has its share of gatekeepers, which is amazing considering it's not that old a setting, really, when you think about it. It's like, you're not even old school, dudes. Mr. Sai, I am 6'1". Smidge over 6'1". But I'm very wide because I'm a dire hobbit. So I mass much more than most people. Which is unfortunately why my arms look fat when in actual fact they are not. I'm just Norwegian. Solid. Boot like a dwarf. I've always thought myself quite average. Like, for my family, I'm fairly average. My mum's quite short. She's a hobbit. My dad was 6'6". He's about 6'4" or 6'5" now, I think. It's all bone, yeah. It's all cake. It's all cake and salami. Betrayal at Silverthorn. That's true, Zachary. Chased the original 2 kids into Aslan's realm, and he gave it existence, and had the gall to give him shit 1,000 years later. Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you even doing here? Built like a half-orc. You're Swedish, tell me about it. Yeah, exactly. It's probably got a lot to do with the cheese. Can't lie. Like, I am trying to slim down a little bit. It's summer. You can see I'm starting to tan up already. Starting to go that golden tan. Thank you, Adrianeth. Thick is triggering me. It looks too much like Thaco. That's a good theory. Eberron, the Nine Hells, and the Domains of Dread are probably acting as barriers to prevent the spread of the Abyss in several different angles. What if the Dark Powers are actually the psychic amusements of the most powerful beings in the universe, in the multiverse, and they don't know who each other are? So it could be Asmodeus, Myconid Sovereign. It could be a Deep Spawn. It could be an Aboleth Sovereign. Thanks to Wall. I like the concept of a world's population selling their souls to the Hells to keep that world out of the Abyss, all becoming devils in the process. Ooh. That is interesting. It's almost time for me to go, everyone. I'm going a little bit over, but everybody's throwing really good questions at me. Don't get Trump-coloured. Oh, that's impossible. This is real. Oh, by the way, for anybody not paying attention, we've just had our election in New Zealand, and Jacinda Ardern has smashed into the leadership position. That's the strongest win by one party since like 50 years, which is before our proportional representation voting system actually began. So it's the strongest single party leadership that this country has ever had. We're essentially just in love with Jacinda and the Labour government right now. And we won't have word on the referendum on legalising cannabis or euthanasia until November, because they're counting the votes a bit slower, because we needed to form a government first. Thanks, Kikastuk. Can a child's parents sell the kid's soul to the devil before it is born? No. Seems like a good backstory for a character. No, they can't. They cannot. Absolutely not. There's laws against that. So no entities can mess with souls before the soul has to freely give over. It has to agree with. The Rift War legacy. Summer. Yeah, I sat out on the lawn reading, and then fell asleep for about 3 hours under full noonday sun. So this is me after 3 hours of full blasting, no ozone sunlight. But apparently, I'm quite resistant to getting sunburn. I don't know why. Like, New Zealanders are much more resistant to UV light, I've discovered. Because we live quite close to the bottom of the world, where there's a big ozone hole, so we get exposed to quite a lot of UV radiation. So that's actually had the effect of making us quite resistant to it. I'd imagine if you gave us a few thousand years, we'd get quite dark-skinned. But it's also cold, so I don't know. And there's a lot of variation between the seasons. So in wintertime, the days are quite short. Summertime, the days are quite long. Much longer than the middle of the world. Auntie Jacinda for the win, yeah. Thank you, Michael. Scales of War in Dungeon Magazine did some crazy stuff with the Githyanki and Bartor. Is that stuff canon? Yeah. Anything that's in Dungeon Magazine was officially canon. Yeah. It's like slightly under canon. Like you can ignore it if you want to, but it's canon. Hey, Scorch. Yeah, you just caught the end of the stream again. Yeah, no, seriously, if any of you guys who are living in continental US got the amount of sun, those of you of the Caucasian population, if you got the amount of sun that I got yesterday, you would be in hospital. You have to be a Kiwi, and you have to have that unique Scandinavian bit of just like I tan up instantly sort of thing. Oh, well, I'm not going to brag or anything. You should not fall asleep in front of the full force of the New Zealand sunshine. That's just a stupid thing to do. But yeah. You're an American Irish descent, born in the Midwest, and we burned like a vampire. Yeah, you would have gone up in flames. You would have walked out and gone, nope, and just walked back inside again. In the full summer heat of New Zealand, when it's like February and you walk out into, like, there's not a cloud in the sky, and you walk out into that midday sun, it's a force that hits you. It's like, oh, I've just walked in front of a campfire, but it's coming from the sky and just pushing you down. You're like, oh, yeah. It's not like the heat of Australia where you get like 44 degrees or 45 degrees in the daytime, and like it's just another world of heat that you can't get away from. It's just everywhere. No, this is just radiant sunshine blasting down at you. Like, you can feel the rad counter going up. You point a like Geiger counter at the sky and it would start to tick, I swear to you. Anyway, time for me to go. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Thanks for all your support. And I'll have more. I'll have some more videos coming out for you this week, and another podcasty thing. And I'm thinking maybe I might release the first podcasty thing for everybody to watch or listen to, and see what you think. Catch you later.